I never thought moving into a quiet, gated community would turn into a battleground. My wife, Angela, and I had chosen this neighborhood for its accessibility, wide sidewalks, smooth roads, and peaceful scenery. It seemed perfect, a safe place where Angela could move freely in her wheelchair without obstacles. But perfection has a way of hiding its cracks. From the moment we moved in, I felt it. The stares, the whispers, the subtle tension that hung in the air whenever Angela and I, a black couple, rolled past the whitewashed porches of our well-manicured street. It wasn't overt, no one said anything outright, but I could see it in the way conversations would shift when we approached, the way HOA members suddenly became very interested in property rules whenever we were around. Angela brushed it off at first. "They're just nosy, Marcus," she said, laughing. "You know how people get in these neighborhoods." I wanted to believe her. I really did. Then came the letters. At first, they were just annoyances, pamphlets about the HOA, reminders about community standards, invitations to strongly consider membership. We ignored them. We weren't interested in joining some overbearing association that dictated the color of our mailbox. We owned our home outright. We didn't need their permission to live here. But the letters kept coming. And then they changed. The wording became more forceful. Instead of invitations, they were now warnings. HOA membership was mandatory, the letters claimed. Non-membership would result in community consequences. No explanation of what that meant, just the veiled threat. I knew better than to take it lightly. I had seen this kind of power play before. This wasn't about HOA rules. This was about control. About making sure people like us, black homeowners who didn't fall in line, knew our place. Angela still tried to keep the peace. "Let's just ignore them, Marcus," she said one evening as I stood by the mailbox, fists clenched around another condescendingly worded letter. "They can't force us to join." She was right. Legally, they couldn't. But some people don't care about legalities when they think they own the world. And I should have seen it coming. The day it happened, I was at work, completely unaware. My phone was on silent. By the time I checked my messages, I had 7 missed calls from Angela, then a final, chilling text that made my blood run cold. "Marcus, help. They won't let me leave." I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart is pounding, every nerve in my body on fire. Angela's text is burned into my brain. "Marcus, help. They won't let me leave." I try calling her straight to voicemail. Something is very wrong. The moment I turn onto our street, I see them. A group of HOA members stands at the edge of our driveway, forming a human barricade. Their pastel polo shirts and khaki shorts make them look more like a country club gathering than a mob, but the smug expressions on their faces send a chill through me. And then I see her, Judith Mercer, HOA president, queen of passive-aggressive emails and condescending letters. A 60-something woman with frosted blonde hair and the perpetual air of someone who believes the world should cater to her every whim. She's standing with her arms crossed, lips pursed, watching my approach like I'm an unwelcome guest on my own property. I park haphazardly, barely throwing the car into park before I jump out. "Where's my wife?" I demand, my voice like thunder. Judith barely blinks. "Good evening, Mr. Carter. I assume you've seen our notices about HOA membership." I ignore her. My eyes scan the yard, the porch, then I see it. Angela. She's sitting in her wheelchair in the driveway, her hands gripping the armrests so tight I can see the tension in her fingers. Her face is calm, too calm. The kind of calm that masks something dangerous underneath. And then I see it.
The chain. A chain.
Thick, silver, and looped around the back of her wheelchair, padlocked to the metal gate that separates our driveway from the street. They've chained her in. My breath catches in my throat. For a second, I can't move.
Can't think.
Then something inside me snaps. What the hell is this? I roar, stepping toward Angela, but before I can reach her, a burly man in a navy HOA polo blocks my path. Judith sighs dramatically. "Mr. Carter, there's no need for hostility. We simply needed to ensure your wife remained available for discussion. You've both ignored our letters, our calls, our very reasonable requests. It's time to take this matter seriously. I stare at her, barely comprehending the level of insanity I'm witnessing. You chained a disabled woman in her own driveway? Judith waves a hand dismissively. Let's not be dramatic. It's a precaution. We can't have non-members disregarding community rules. It sets a bad precedent.
I don't hear the rest.
My pulse is roaring in my ears, my vision tunneling. I step forward, my jaw tight. Unlock it.
Now.
Judith tilts her head, smiles. And in that moment, I see it in her eyes. She thinks she's won. Angela's eyes lock onto mine, calm but seething. I know that look. It's the one she gives me when she's already 3 steps ahead, when she's waiting for me to catch up. But right now, I'm too blinded by fury to think ahead. I take another step forward, squaring up to the burly HOA enforcer blocking my path.
Move.
Now. He doesn't budge. Judith sighs like I'm a petulant child. Mr. Carter, you're making a scene. Your wife is quite comfortable, I assure you. This will all be resolved once we... You chain my wife to a damn gate. My voice booms across the cul-de-sac. Several neighbors peek out from their windows, some stepping onto their porches. Judith doesn't flinch. Your wife refused to comply with our HOA policies. We had no choice but to detain her until you both agreed to a discussion.
Detain.
Like she's a criminal. Angela exhales through her nose, keeping her voice level. Judith, this is a crime. You're aware of that, right? Judith smiles.
No, dear.
You're the one violating community standards. That's when she pulls out a contract. A thick stack of papers, printed on crisp legal stationery. She holds it up like a shield. This is the covenant of our HOA. Every homeowner in this community is subject to it, whether they opt in or not. We have the authority to enforce compliance. I glare at the paper. We never signed that. You didn't need to, Judith says smoothly. It was part of the neighborhood's agreement before you moved in. You should have read the fine print. Fine print? This is insane. I glance at Angela, but she's already on it, pulling out her phone, swiping fast. Marcus, that's illegal. HOA rules can't be imposed retroactively. And even if they could, this isn't enforcement. It's unlawful imprisonment. Judith's lips tighten. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crosses her face.
Good.
I turn back to the enforcer. You hear that? You're breaking the law. Unlock the chain. Still, the man doesn't move. Instead, Judith smiles. There's no need to be hostile, she purrs. But if you're going to involve the law, perhaps we should even the playing field. She pulls out her phone and taps the screen. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers roll into the cul-de-sac. I tense as 2 officers step out, both white. The taller one, Officer Gregson, eyes the scene before strolling toward me, hand on his holster. Sir, we got a call about a disturbance. Judith feigns concern. Oh, officers. Thank goodness you're here. We have a trespasser. This man is threatening community members and refusing to leave private property. My blood runs cold. She's flipping the script. The other officer, a stocky guy with a permanent scowl, eyes me like I'm already guilty. Sir, we're gonna need you to step away. Angela's voice is steel. My husband owns this house. Judith shakes her head. That may be technically true, but HOA law overrides individual ownership when it comes to community governance. Gregson eyes her. Is that right? For a moment, everything is still. The cops stand between me and Angela. The HOA enforcer looms nearby like some discount bouncer. And Judith Mercer, self-proclaimed queen of this community, watches me with a smirk, eyes gleaming with a thrill of power. She thinks she's won. She gestures toward the chain around Angela's wheelchair. Officers, I'd like to press charges for trespassing. Mr. Carter refuses to acknowledge our community regulations, and his wife has been non-compliant. We had no choice but to ensure she remained available for discussion. Gregson frowns but doesn't move. The other cop, though, Officer Scowl, immediately steps forward. Sir, I need you to stand down while we assess the situation. You need to assess her, I snap, pointing at Judith. She chained my wife to a damn gate. That's illegal imprisonment. Judith laughs. Actually laughs. Oh, Mr. Carter, she coos, shaking her head. Your anger is clouding your judgment. No one was harmed, and we have every right to enforce HOA compliance. You should be grateful we're handling this civilly. Angela's voice slices through the tension. You're going to regret this, Judith. Judith doesn't even look at her. She keeps her eyes on me. And what exactly are you going to do, dear?
Call a lawyer?
We are the law in this neighborhood. She turns to Gregson and motions toward me. Please remove him. We can discuss next steps once he's calm. Gregson hesitates. He doesn't look entirely convinced, but the moment he glances at his partner, I know how this will go. Officer Scowl is already reaching for his cuffs. I exhale slowly. Judith thinks she's playing chess. She has no idea I'm holding the winning piece. Angela, still perfectly composed, pulls out her phone. You might want to hold off on those cuffs, officer. Judith scoffs. More baseless threats? Angela taps her screen, and suddenly, her voice booms through the neighborhood. Good evening, citizens of Oak Ridge. This is Governor Angela Carter. Silence. For the first time, Judith's expression cracks. The voice isn't coming from Angela's phone anymore. It's coming from every speaker in the community. The emergency broadcast system. Neighbors step out onto porches, some clutching their phones, others staring in confusion as Angela's pre-recorded message plays through the HOA's own announcement system. As governor, I take allegations of unlawful detainment and civil rights violations very seriously. If you or someone you know has been mistreated by this HOA, my office will personally investigate. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Phones start recording. Whispers turn into murmurs. Angela meets Judith's gaze and smiles. Oh, did I forget to mention? I'm the governor of this state. Judith's face goes pale. Gregson takes a slow step back. Even Officer Scowl hesitates. Angela's voice plays on. Any abuse of authority, racial discrimination, or illegal detainment will be met with swift legal action. If you are witnessing an incident of HOA overreach, please report it immediately. Neighbors' eyes dart between us and Judith. The power balance is shifting.
Fast.
I cross my arms. So, Judith, you were saying something about the law. Her mouth opens, then closes. No words come out. Angela's voice cuts back in. If you are currently detaining someone unlawfully, I strongly suggest you release them immediately before law enforcement arrives. Judith breaks. She spins toward her enforcer. Unlock it.
Now.
His hands shake as he fumbles with the padlock. It takes 3 tries before the shackle clicks open, and the moment the chain falls away, I move. I push past the officers, kneel beside Angela, and take her hands. Are you okay? She squeezes my fingers. I am now. I help her roll back, standing protectively in front of her. Then, I turn to Judith, stepping close enough that only she can hear me. You just kidnapped the governor of this state. Judith sways slightly. I see the moment she realizes it. The moment the fear sets in. She opens her mouth. To beg, to explain, to justify. But no words come. Because she knows.
She's finished.
Judith is unraveling before my eyes. Her hands tremble as she adjusts her cardigan, the fake composure slipping like wet paint. She glances around, probably hoping for support, but the neighborhood isn't on her side anymore. Phones are out. Cameras are rolling. She turns to Gregson, her voice sharp with desperation. Well, arrest them. They're trespassing. They're threatening me. Gregson exhales, rubbing his temples. Even Officer Scowl, who was ready to cuff me a few minutes ago, looks concerned. Ma'am, Gregson says carefully, I think we need to take a step back. Judith snaps.
No.
We do not need to step back. We need to enforce the law. That's what you're here for, isn't it? Protecting the community. She jabs a finger toward Angela, her voice rising. Do you know what kind of people they are? They move in here, ignore the rules, and... She catches herself too late. The words hang in the air. Judith's face blanches. The crowd hears it. The subtle racism, the entitlement. The thinly veiled belief that people like us don't belong here. Angela, still seated in her wheelchair, tilts her head. What kind of people, Judith? Judith's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. And then from somewhere in the crowd, a voice. I have footage. Everyone turns. A man steps forward. James, our next-door neighbor. Middle-aged, white, the kind of guy who always keeps to himself. But right now, he's holding up his phone, the screen glowing. He hits play. Judith's voice crackles through the speaker. They don't belong here. We're going to make them so uncomfortable they leave. The recording is clear. Her voice, dripping with malice, as she speaks to her enforcer earlier that morning. They think they can ignore us? We'll see how they feel when we take control. Chain her if you have to. She can't go anywhere anyway. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Judith lunges. Turn that off. James steps back, holding the phone higher. Oh no. This is going straight to the governor's office. And the news. Judith loses it. Her hands ball into fists. This is a private matter. You can't. Actually, Angela interrupts smoothly. As the governor, I absolutely can. And then she pulls out her own phone. This, she says, raising it for everyone to see, is me on a live call with the Attorney General. Judith stares in horror as Angela turns the screen around. And sure enough, the AG himself is on the line. I heard everything. His voice booms over the speaker. Governor Carter, do you wish to press charges? Judith stumbles backward. Wait, charges? Angela nods, her expression cool. Unlawful imprisonment. Civil rights violations. Abuse of power. She ticks them off on her fingers. Not to mention housing discrimination, coercion, and reckless endangerment. Judith's breathing turns ragged. This is a misunderstanding. Angela turns to the officers. Gentlemen, I suggest you do your jobs. Gregson doesn't hesitate. He steps forward, unclipping his cuffs. Judith Mercer, you are under arrest. Judith screams.
No.
You can't. She whirls on Gregson, her voice hitting a high-pitched shriek. I know people. I'll have your badge for this. But Gregson doesn't care. He pulls her hands behind her back. The cuffs snap into place. Neighbors whisper. Someone claps. A few even cheer. Judith, once the queen of the HOA, is now nothing but a disgraced criminal. The moment the cuffs click shut, the power dynamic in the neighborhood shatters. Judith Mercer, once the self-proclaimed queen of Oak Ridge Estates, stands before us, wrists bound, face pale, mouth gaping like a fish pulled from water. The crowd watches in stunned silence. The woman who spent years bullying, intimidating, and controlling them is now just another criminal being hauled away. Gregson tightens his grip on her arm. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Judith screeches. You can't do this. You idiots don't understand. I run this neighborhood. I am the HOA. Angela leans forward in her wheelchair, eyes steady, voice smooth as silk. Not anymore. The officers drag Judith toward the squad car, her feet scraping the pavement as she thrashes. I'll sue. I'll have your jobs. I'll...
Slam.
The car door shuts, muffling her rage. A beat of silence. Then, applause. It starts as a single clap, then another. And then, like a dam breaking, the entire cul-de-sac erupts.
Cheers.
Whistles. Relief. The same neighbors who once cowered under Judith's rule now stand tall, their faces lit with something they haven't felt in years, freedom. James, the neighbor who exposed her, claps me on the back. Took long enough. A woman in a red sweater shakes Angela's hand. Governor, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up sooner. Angela nods, ever composed. Now you can. The weight of what just happened sinks in. The woman who tried to control our lives is gone. The HOA's stranglehold on this neighborhood? Over. And soon, everything she built will crumble. The aftermath. Judith's downfall is swift and brutal. By morning, news stations are running the footage. The headline? HOA president arrested for chaining disabled governor. Faces multiple felony charges. Her past victims come forward. Former residents, Neighbors who moved away to escape her tyranny, even former HOA board members who were forced out when they questioned her tactics. And then comes the financial ruin. The HOA? Dismantled. The lawsuits? Piling up. Property values? Tanking. And Judith Mercer? Completely, utterly destroyed. A new beginning. A week later, Angela and I sit on our front porch, coffee in hand. For the first time since we moved in, the air feels light. The neighborhood is different. Better. People smile.
They talk.
They help each other. Judith's house sits empty. A for sale sign stabs the lawn, its letters bold and bright. Angela smirks. Think anyone will buy it? I chuckle. Not if they know the history. She sighs, leaning into me. We did it, Marcus. I kiss her forehead.
No, baby.
You did it. And as we watch the sun rise over our newly freed neighborhood, I realize something. This isn't just justice. This is victory.